Welcome back. Time for that discussion on what's happening with Kenya Power Company. In studio this evening we do have Robert Pavel Oimeka, the Director General, Energy Regulatory Commission. Remember, the big question tonight is Kenya Power Company playing by the book in billing consumers? You can be part of the conversation. The hashtag to use is a big question. Twitter's @CitizenTV Kenya is our Twitter handle. My Twitter handle is @FredIndimuli. Also @Pavel Oimeke is DG's Twitter handle. You can also text us on 22422. Now, Bwana Oimeke, good evening na karibu sana to studio.
Thank you very much.
First of all, quite a number of our viewers today this evening are following the conversations on Twitter, on social media and on text, simply because there's a blackout affecting a huge part of the country. You as a regulator, you must be aware of what's happening. Kindly update us on what's happening.
Thank you, Fred. The country is currently experiencing a blackout in some parts of the country, and this happened due to a fault in one of our transmission lines. There is a line that comes from Nairobi North and the Deru area to Dandora that developed a fault. And you know what happens when a high voltage line develops a fault? Then the demand and supply gets imbalanced. And because of that, the system collapses. So what we're currently experiencing is due to that fault in that 220 kV line. And the engineers are actually working. I've spoken to the MD for Kenya Power,
yes,
Dr. Ken Tarus. He's actually at the National Control Center working to restore the power.
So a fault in Nairobi affects the entire country. There is even some people claiming on social media that parts of Uganda are affected. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I think it's true because Kenya and Uganda are interconnected. We have a power exchange program between Kenya and Uganda. So whenever we have a fault, especially a major fault like that one, it affects both Kenya and Uganda.
Okay.
So once we restore parts of the country in the central part of Kenya, then the western part of Kenya will be energized. Then Uganda can also come up.
Would you be aware of how long we're looking at? Is it something that will take overnight or a few hours and then power will be restored?
It's something that takes a few hours because they have to really match the demand and the supply. The scenario is that, especially now in the evening, most people are waiting for the power to come on. The TVs are on, waiting. Most of the electrical appliances are waiting. So they are really trying to balance, but if a matter of few hours, then the power will be back on.
Okay. Now, that's happening. The blackout is not... Kenya Power is receiving quite a beating on social media as we speak. But this is not the first time that Kenya Power is receiving a beating this week. This past weekend, and since the 2018 started, Kenya Power has been on the receiving end, especially with regard to their billing system. Many consumers are complaining that they are receiving irregular, irrational bills. Some people who have been paying maybe 5,000 shillings a month are now paying more than 70,000 shillings a month. Many questions have been asked. We've seen the CS for Energy try to explain. We've seen the CEO of Kenya Power, Ken Tarus, trying to explain today. But Kenyans are just not believing this. So the big question is today, is Kenya Power playing by the book in its billing system? You are the regulator. You are the prefect in this matter. Is Kenya Power playing by the book?
Thanks, Fred. I just want to state that the Energy Regulatory Commission is an independent body that regulates the energy sector. And Kenya Power billings and the tariff is actually approved by the Commission.
Yes.
And it's a very rigorous process that we look at what goes into constituting the cost of electricity that consumers pay. So I want to put it that Kenya Power experienced a problem in their billing system. They are actually upgrading their billing system from the old billing system to a new enhanced billing system, which has a lot of good features. But as usual with the technology, when you bring in a new technology, there are always challenges. The new billing system has very good features, like you can read the meters in customer premises at a radius of about 50 meters. You don't need to enter the gate. You don't need to have the owner open the meter box to read. This is a very good advantage because we have had cases whereby some components are not accessible. But this has been a big issue whereby now the meter readers have been forced to estimate the bills because they cannot access the premises. Now this is a thing of the past. It's not going to happen anymore.
What about the media reports that have been doing the rounds over the last 1 week or so that Kenya Power, because what you're saying, Bwana DG, is what the CS said yesterday, is what Bwana Kenta Rus is saying today as well, and it looks like a very good script. But according to media reports, and anything you're saying now was in reaction to those media reports, is that Kenya Power was actually trying to cover a shortfall from last year, that they failed to charge people because of the fuel charge last year, and towards the end of the year they realized they had a shortfall of about 8 to 10 billion shillings, and this irrational, irregular bills are an attempt by Kenya Power to try and correct that anomaly. What do you say to that?
I would say that that is not true, really. The fact is not that Kenya Power is trying to recover any sort of money. Kenya Power was upgrading the billing system, and as a result, there were instances, about 3 months, when bills were not right. They were estimated. And I will give you a simple example. When you estimate your consumption, and you come back and find out that your consumption went up, when Kenya Power comes back now to read the meters and see actually what you consumed, it became that now the bills went up. But I want to put it clearly that anyone who has any inflated bill, or the bills that they are not satisfied with as a customer, the minister has directed that Kenya Power shall not force the customers to pay bills that they are not in agreement. So we have agreed on a two-case scenario where a bill is in dispute. The regulator will come in. That's why we have a referee in the energy sector. The regulator will come in and vet those bills.
Because
and whereby where it is found out that the bill was erroneous, this bill will be corrected.
Okay.
And where the bill is found out to be correct, the customers are going to be given time. They are not going to be told to pay it within 1 month. They will be given a period of time agreed between the customer and Kenya Power.
Okay.
So in essence, no customer is going to be convenienced by disconnecting them from the power system.
Yet the CS yesterday directed such aggrieved consumers to seek redress with Kenya Power. This has happened before, where a customer goes to Kenya Power Company and says, my bill hasn't been inflicted, but the company says, pay first, then we shall resolve later. But looking at your mandate as ERC, complaints and disputes resolutions fall directly under you. Why is the CS directing aggrieved consumers to go to Kenya Power instead of coming to the ERC?
I would say that the ministry is in charge of policy. We are in charge of regulation. When the minister gives a policy directive, it is upon the regulator to implement that policy directive in a regulation. And I want to put that we have regulation on consumer protection. These regulations guide us in how to resolve any customer complaints. And the Energy Act of 2006 gives us that mandate, the one that we've read. So we are saying as a regulator, we have directed Kenya Power to ensure that they expeditiously look at the complaints, resolve them, and as a commission, I've constituted a team of experts from within ERC to look at all the bills, and where we find that the bills were erroneous, we are going to direct Kenya Power to correct them. And also, if in any case Kenya Power made a mistake that is really of their own doing, the regulations are very clear. The act is very clear. Kenya Power can also be penalized in terms of monetary value to make sure that they do not repeat the same mistake. So what I want to say is that there is a regulator who is very independent, and we make our own independent decisions. But again, we don't work in isolation. We consult the ministry because of policy.
But are you saying that consumers who are aggrieved can come to ERC directly with such complaints instead of going to Kenya Power?
Yes, they can come to us. But the procedure is you go to Kenya Power. If the complaint is not resolved, then you escalate it to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the issue of backdating bills, issuing estimated bills to consumers, you say last year about 3 months was a problem, but this has been going on for years. Now, you say there's a new billing system, yet we know that the energy sector had embarked on this mega project of ensuring that every consumer of electricity in Kenya is hooked onto the prepaid system. What happened to that?
I want to state that the issue of estimation of bills has been going on. And it has been going on because they didn't have a system that can handle the automatic meter reading that the current billing system that has been installed. So that is now, I think, of the past. We are now looking at, from February 2018, there will be no estimation of bills because the new billing system is able to accept remote meter reading for the smart meters, and also individuals who have smartphones can be able to take a picture of the meter and transmit to Kenya Power, and that can be billed. Now, I want also to note that the prepaid meters have actually been installed in the country. We are having about 3.9 million customers connected on prepaid, where they purchase the tokens. This is quite a large number. We have come a long way. Currently, we have about 6.4 million customers who are connected. Out of that, we have about 5,000 who are industrial customers. We have about 100,000 who are SMEs. And the other difference are still on the old type of meters, the analog meters. So what we are working on now, what Kenya Power is working on, is to make sure that we are able to migrate most of the SMEs to the smart meters, and also most of the old meters, the analog meters, into what we call the prepaid meters.
And what has caused the delay? Because many people are asking, is it an issue of funding? Because quite a number of people, even in Nairobi, parts of Kileleshwa, Karen, and parts of the suburbs in Nairobi especially, have not been connected to the prepaid meters. Is it an issue of cost, or is it an issue of stratification? Because we do also understand that even the tariffs are not standardized, that different people pay different amounts for the same power.
Now, on the issue of meters, the meters are quite expensive to deploy. To deploy the almost the 5 million consumers who really need to have the prepaid meters, it takes a bit of time. But I want to state that there is a plan. Kenya Power has been enabled because we approve the tariffs. We enable them to do system upgrades and all that. So we went to enable them in the tariff that we're currently reviewing to have them ensure that most Kenyans who are still analog can be converted to prepaid meters. So that is work that is ongoing, and because of that cost, it brings in the fact that you cannot do it at once. It's a gradual upgrade. In about 2-3 years ago, we only had about 500,000 prepaid meters. Now we are talking about almost 4 million prepaid meters. To me, that is good progress, and we're aiming to ensure that in the short term, availability of funds, all customers, especially domestic customers, will be on prepaid meters. Okay. On the issue of variable tariff, we are currently reviewing our tariff structure to ensure that some of the components in the tariff, like the fixed cost charge, which is a big variable of the pass-through costs, is actually harmonized with the energy charge. I know this is a bit technical. We want to ensure that when a Kenyan buys tokens, or when a Kenyan pays electricity, within the month, within 30 days, the cost does not vary slightly. So there is already work in progress. Our teams are already engaging, and we want to give more stable prices to the consumers. Okay. At least within the month, where the prices will not vary very much. And
when we make, as we finalize on this interview, of course, we started by talking about this deficit that was reported in media that Kenya Power was ostensibly trying to cover, and hence the backdated bills. Now, let's come back to that. If at all it is true that Kenya Power actually last year failed to charge consumers the fuel component, and therefore they have a shortfall that they tried in some way to recover, but that has hit a block. Should they come to you as the energy regulator to try and probably adjust the tariff so that they can recover going forward, or what happens in such a case?
For any change in tariff, any costs that are to be levied on the consumers, this must be pre-approved. It must be approved beforehand by the regulator. That is a legal requirement. I want to state that the error we are having in the bills is not due to recovery of any other amounts. This is an error, and any other system, this digital system, can bring errors. And what you have said is that that issue is going to be addressed. And the issue of the fuel cost charge, which is a big component that goes into the tariff. Currently, this is starting at about 4 shillings and 35 cents per kilowatt hour. We have seen a lot of challenges in the past year. We didn't have very good rains, so our dams that are cheap actually did not give us the energy they were supposed to give. We also had challenges in some of the some of the geothermal power plants, and also the other factor that is obvious to everyone, the price of crude oil went up significantly from about 30 to about 63 now. So you see, look at those variabilities that creates in the increase.
Does it mean the tariff was intended to change last year because of that variable?
What I'm saying is
when you use diesel, it becomes more expensive. It means Kenyans would end up paying more for electricity. Is that what happened?
Actually, what happened is that because of those factors, we were lucky as a country that the development of geothermal power came in almost at the same time. In 2015, we added a lot of geothermal. In 2016, this really came in to help us. There was also the line between Nairobi and Mombasa that was commissioned, a transmission line. That also came in, because in Mombasa we have a lot of thermal power plants. And if that was used, it was the same scenario that we were in about 4 years ago, then currently the fuel cost charge would be very high, almost 8 shillings. So what we are saying is that the monies that are being claimed to have been passed because of the erroneous bills is not true. This is really an issue of the billing software, which is being addressed, and we have said that the customers will be given a chance to discuss, and again the regulator is looking at it. So this did not really impact.
And Kenya Power did not lose out on any fuel charge last year. There's no 8.1 billion shillings or 10.1 billion shillings that needs to be recovered in some way.
What I want to explain is that the fuel cost charges are a monthly pass-through. Every month the Commission computes what, from the consumption of thermal power plants, what is the cost that goes into that. And we approve that for Kenya Power to go and charge. When we set that amount, that cost is a set cost which is set at an equilibrium. Sometimes you can have a positive, sometimes you can have a negative. So there could be small variances, but not the figures that you're mentioning about, which can be corrected. And again, they have to be approved by the Commission before Kenya Power can charge.
Well, thank you so much, Robert Pavelo Imeke, Director General, Energy Regulatory Commission, helping us answer the question, is Kenya Power Company playing by the book in billing consumers?